Introducing Pinnacle, the premium motor insurance policy from Sri Lanka Insurance Motor Plus.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Hot Seat powered by Sri Lanka Insurance. Today's guest has a CV so long, if I wanted to print it out, I'd probably have to, get 10 sheets of paper, a whole ream. We have with us Mr. Pradeep Amirthanayagam. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me here.
So, like I said, very long CV, and I want to kind of go through that. So, time in broadcast at SLBC, ITN, Rupavahini, trained with the BBC and all of that. But then also like a founding member, chairman and managing director of Holmes, Pollard and Stott. And then also, as of like a week before we filmed this, reappointed as independent non-executive chairman of People's Leasing and Finance PLC. How many hours of sleep do you get a day with all of this?
I enjoy my sleep. I need to have the 7 hours of sleep. Otherwise, I can't function at the level that I would love to. So, sleep is an important component in my life. Nevertheless, the day is very busy, but it keeps me stimulated because I move from one area of discipline to another. And it's something that I look forward to. When I wake up every morning, I say, I'm ready to go.
So, what has that trajectory been like? Because obviously for someone like me who's in the media at present, and then looking at someone who's been in the industry in advertising for 30 years and then also in finance and all of that, what was that trajectory like for you? How did it start out and how have we gotten to where we are today?
Well, when I got through my advanced level, my parents were keen that I got into a career in accountancy. And that's what I did. But so while I was studying accountancy, I applied to SLBC, who had called for relief announcers, because I had an interest in speech and drama, and I did my Trinity College exams and got through my speech and drama, won medals at college for speech and drama, took part in a lot of plays at St. Joseph's. So I wanted to get into radio broadcasting. And there was a whole host of entries. There were 300, 400 people who applied, because at that time it was only SLBC.
Exactly, yeah.
No one else. And out of a very, very stringent process of selection, we had after about 3 months of intensive training, they selected 3 people. That is Ravi John, David Van Eyck, and myself.
Wow.
So that was my entry into broadcasting. All 3 of us made quick inroads into radio and also television. And I was happy to read news on television for quite a considerable period of time. And in between, my parents sent me for my higher studies to the UK. And when the chairman of SLBC heard that I was going to be in London, he very, very kindly called me one day and he said, I give you a note to Bush House. I have some of my friends there, and if they like you and if they if they feel that you have the talent, which I think you have, I've asked them to give you a stint there in training. So before I even went and enrolled at the London School of Accountancy for my accounting studies, I took this letter and went to the BBC in Bush House. And that particular office was down Langham Road. And I met the head of the BBC local radio at that time. He was a former veteran broadcaster, Vernon Correa, who is uncle of Vijaya Correa.
Okay.
And so he quickly lined me up. He gave me a test and gave me a desk, gave me a chair, gave me a telephone, and told me to come in, whenever I could. So I used to even file reports whenever Sri Lanka toured England at that time, cricket, to follow the cricket and send in a summary of the day's cricket to the sports news here at BBC, at SLBC, and got involved in their training programs at BBC Nottingham, BBC Warwick, and various places like that, and in news reading, interviewing, sports commentaries at the Saturday sports desk. So it was a very interesting period. I may have neglected my studies, but I quickly learned the trade, as it were, and enjoyed every bit of it.
I can imagine that's just an amazing opportunity, and just to have that kind of exposure, it's nuts. Okay, so then once you come back, we then get into the Holmes, Pollard and Stott era?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Somewhere down the line, I decided that accountancy was not my cup of tea.
Okay.
I could pass exams, but I couldn't see myself seated and
Your heart wasn't in it.
being an accountant. But that has helped me, with the positions that I have sat. I mean, to look at a balance sheet and to give advice on various things. But my heart was in marketing.
Right.
Was in doing something different every day. So I finished my Chartered Institute of Marketing exams very, very quickly when I came back to Sri Lanka, and passed out, and thought advertising was an interesting field to be in, because things evolve daily. And one moment you're talking automobile, next moment you're talking FMCG, cake of soap or toothpaste, or a BMW vehicle, or so you keep young.
There's a lot of variety and
a lot of
change.
variety,
Yeah.
and it doesn't bore you because you sit at 3-4 meetings. So I again applied to a leading advertising agency at that time, got selected, worked for a while, joined another agency. In this advertising agency industry, you need to, for a period of time, move on, because that gives you opportunities to work on multiple brands. And I moved mainly because I wanted to work on the Nestle brand.
Okay.
And I moved to another agency and then became the general manager there. And then 2 Australians came along, and they were wanting to start a local agency. One had links to Sri Lanka. His name was Jeremy Holmes, and invited me to be its CEO. That was in maybe 1990.
Yes.
And I was happy where I was, but I thought opportunity doesn't knock twice.
Yeah.
I took the opportunity and became the CEO. It was a hard grind where I had to find the business, pay the salaries, but that gave me a lot of confidence and learning for the future. And built the agency. Today the agency is 30 odd years old. And this Australian, I'm proud of one thing, they wanted to have a Asia Pacific network.
Okay.
And they had offices in KL, they had offices in Jakarta, they had offices in Sydney, all under the same name. But I'm proud that only Holmes, Pollard and Stott Sri Lanka is in existence today. The others have all closed down.
That is amazing.
So, and today I'm the sole owner, and they're sold out.
Okay.
So in that sense it has been rewarding, but it has also been difficult at times.
I can imagine.
Ad volumes, have come down a lot since COVID, since the economic recession. The first area of cut is advertising and
exactly.
marketing. So we have had to face a huge, lot of issues, but never say die attitude prevails, and we are still there.
Same goes to the TNR Radio Network, I think. So with regard to, so again, like from the people's leasing aspect of it as well, where do you see the market moving forward? Because again, like the main issue has just been that people from an advertising perspective have been just cutting their budgets. And then even from a leasing perspective or just a financing perspective, spending is coming down for a lot of people. And so what do you see, or how do you see the path forward looking? What kind of timeline do you think we're looking at? And what kind of things do you think should be happening from a policy or otherwise angle that could help kind of spur that, resurgence?
People's Leasing is a great story. It's a great story to emulate, because here was an organization that was, People's Bank decided one day to not to do the leasing business. So they opened a small window 25 years ago to park their leasing business, and they lent People's Leasing 3 or 4 members of their staff and started off. Today it's the largest non-banking financial institution in the country, and it is the net asset base is stronger than some of the private commercial banks. It goes to prove that the Sri Lankan spirit is indomitable. And the Sri Lankan spirit, given the opportunities, given the exposure, will achieve a lot. And this is a company that was listed about maybe 12 years or 13 years ago, and it's done phenomenally well. Last year we spoke about the current conditions. We made a profit of 4.6 billion.
Wow.
Right?
Even with everything that was happening.
Even with what was happening.
Wow.
And today the staff strength is huge. The branch network is 120 odd. We are not only in leasing now, we are in various other commercial instruments. We are in gold loans. We are in we give a lot of loans to SMEs. We are into investments. We are in deposits. So it's a massive operation. And what was considered a state-run organization to achieve so much. So privatization, just giving a little leadership, giving an inch of rein for them to function without the red tapes and bureaucracy and all that surrounds a state institution, businesses can thrive. So if Sri Lanka practices this same model in a few organizations that have potential, Sri Lanka can come out of this current situation very fast. And I believe that His Excellency is thinking as well, where he wants to empower the people in the organization to take it and run it, not depend on politicians to deliver, because or politicians to have a say in the affairs of running a company or running an institution. We know what the results have been. So this way there will be success, this way the country will be better off, this way it will spur economic growth, and means that the workforce in those organizations will have a better tomorrow, because I know the remuneration packages that are paid to right down the line, and we are better than some of the private organizations. So, and we are not, that is because we are able to do that because we are outside that real state umbrella, though the strength of the organization is because it's backed, 75% is owned by People's Bank, and that is the strength. So people trust a brand that is associated with the name People's, right? So whilst that is there, the engine is able to rev up because of the private sector feeling that you walk in. If you walk into that office, you will not think that it has anything to do with the state sector.
Interesting. So again, on the topic of privatization and as a wider thing that we should be exploring, when it comes to where that investment should be coming from for the private sector, from a national sense or an international sense, what do you think would be a good path?
I think it's a mix of both.
Okay.
Because you need to move with the times to be able to, be cutting edge where the world is concerned. You need to bring in investment from overseas. The country needs dollars, and the country needs technological development. So therefore, you need the expertise from there. At the same time, Sri Lankans have a lot of ability and passion for what they do if given the right opportunity. As you see, when many Sri Lankans go overseas, they do very well.
Yes.
That's because they're given that freedom, they're given the ability to do a job without somebody looking over them. And they're given targets and they perform. And tell me how many people have failed. I mean, Sri Lankans are in every sphere, whether it is medicine or IT or engineering or law, they're all doing exceedingly well overseas. But when it comes to Sri Lanka, they become laid back. They are not given that opportunity to develop and grow. They're not given the opportunity to, train themselves. So when there is overseas investment, will come training, will come expertise, and they will be able to develop.
Okay, all right. So one more thing that I wanted to explore was you mentioned the president and his plans for the future as well. You were a deputy chief of staff when he was the prime minister back in 2019. What was that process like? Like, how did you get there? Because again, you think you have the Holmes, Pollard and Stott, you have People's Leasing back then, I think, as well at that point.
Yes.
But what was that like? Did he call you? Was it WhatsApp? Like, how did that process work out?
Well, I have been associated with the president since 1994 when he was prime minister in 1994, and I have known him possibly since 1980 because he came to the Josephian Prize giving as the chief guest as Minister of Education, and that was virtually my advanced level first year, and I carried away many prizes, and I still remember him telling me, aren't there others to win prizes? Because every time I walked up. But, so that was my first encounter with him, and I met him again in 94 when he was Prime Minister, and continued to stay in touch with him even after they lost the election. And we developed a very close friendship. And then Rosie Senanayake was the Deputy Chief of Staff, was appointed by him during that term, and she got elected as Mayor of Colombo. So there was a vacuum, and he invited me to fill that role, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It's completely different. It took quite a lot of my time.
That's what I was about to ask. Where did you find the time in the day?
Because sitting at meetings with him, also meeting a lot of people, political, non-political, and getting things done. Moving state machinery is not an easy task.
Yeah.
So, Prime Minister has a vision, President has a vision, and the President gives certain ideas, instructions, but they move on. You need to have people in there to carry that vision forward, make sure his thought process is done, is achieved, because if he achieves it, the country will be better off. I can't see a president being a micro person where he follows up on every little thing he says. So it's meant for officials to take a cue and make sure that the program is unleashed.
One final question, coming back to your time as as the Deputy Chief of Staff. You still held your positions with Holmes, Pollard and Stott and all of that. How would you would it be okay to keep a barrier between those positions? And if, I would assume there would be, but if so, how would that operate?
Well, Holmes, Pollard sort of took a big backseat during that period, because I hardly went to the agency, because I had to be at Temple Trees and then I had to be at People's Leasing, because I was the deputy chairman and then ended up being the chairman in the last 3 or 4 months of that period. So but today communication is such that I was able to be in touch if there was a problem. But I had a very good team at Holmes who could independently handle matters. It didn't need my input. It is only the last 2-3 years it needed my input because the situation was so bad.
Yeah.
It was despicable. I mean, when advertising comes to zero, what can you do?
Yeah.
There's nothing. So they needed me to be there to guide them to find answers for problems on a day-to-day basis, and to see whether I could tap into some client somewhere, make a presentation, and be heard and be noticed, and we managed to go through that tough time because of that.
Okay, so were people not concerned because, like, again, you have significant stakes in people leasing and all of that, but then also are so close to government through the Prime Minister's office? Were there not concerns regarding like how that would operate, or how did you make that work?
I compartmentalize myself. When I am at People's Leasing is my focus. When I'm at Temple Trees, that is my job. And as I said, I hardly went to Holmes Pollard during that time. But even advertising, actually I shut myself away for a while, and possibly the company felt the effects soon after, because somehow advertising revolves around the head of the agency.
Okay.
Business is generated because of the head of the agency. And whatever position you hold, a client would want you to come and say hello to them. So I just didn't have the time to go and say hello. I didn't have time to visit my clients. And when that situation arises, there are others who can, creep in and get a slice of the business. And they feel, any client wants to feel important. They would want the head of the agency to come and say hello to them. So that has to be ensured at all times. So this time around, I'm not the Deputy Chief of Staff to the President, but I want to rebuild the advertising agency. That's one. Two is to concentrate also on People's Leasing, because we are in very, very challenging times. Where you go through the loan book and you see people are struggling to pay their monthly leases, their installments, because of income avenues drying up. So how do you find solutions? Banks and financial institutions must also empathize in those situations. And we are proud at PLC that we have given moratoriums and periods of non-payment more than any other NBFI in the country. That is to give them that opportunity, not to willful defaulters, but to people who have really gone out and suffered, who don't have that idea at all to willfully defraud the financial institution, who have been with the institution for the last 25 years, who have a very good track record, but due to the current impasse, they are suffering. So they need to be given a hand, and we need to hold their hand and navigate them through this turmoil, because they will succeed one day. And if they succeed, we will succeed and the country will succeed.
Well, hopefully that is the way that it's going to go forward. Thank you so much, Mr. Amirthanayagam, for joining us
Thank
today.
you for inviting me. Enjoyed having a chat with you.
So did I. It was lovely.
Wish you all success in what you're doing.
Thank you very much. All the same to you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining on another edition of The Hot Seat, powered by Sri Lanka Insurance. We'll see you in the next one.
Introducing Pinnacle, the premium motor insurance policy from Sri Lanka Insurance Motor Plus.